Good afternoon and welcome to this month's show. I'm Luke McCormack. During today's show, we will discuss critical issues facing government and industry leaders in cybersecurity strategies. With me on today's show are Wanda Jones-Heath, Chief Information Security Officer at the U.S. Air Force, Venus Goodwine, Chief Information Security Officer at USDA, Shane Barney, Chief Information Security Officer at U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, Chris Usserman, Principal Security Architect at Infoblox, Jim Richburg, Field Chief Information Officer, Fortinet, and John Powers, VP of U.S. and Federal Sales at BMC Software. Well, we got multi-clouds out there, we got hybrid clouds out there, we got zero trust, SOC consolidations, an explosion of technology, great mix of agencies and departments here, and a whole bunch of partners that are helping make all this happen. So Wanda, let's start with you. A lot of activity going on over there at the Air Force, and I just can't imagine trying to secure satellites and aircraft and bases and deal with the defense industrial base. A lot on your plate. Why don't you give us a state of the state as to what's happening over there these days?
Well, good afternoon, Luke and team. Thank you from Team Air Force. As you mentioned, we have a lot of great activity underway in the Air Force. We've made progress, and we do understand that we do have more things to accomplish. I'll start out by saying that I've drafted a cybersecurity strategic plan, and this is going to be our roadmap for the entire department to enable us to properly identify and secure all of our assets. We're continuing to leverage pen testing, bug bounties. We just commissioned the start of Hack the Air Force 5.0. We're continuing to find and fix those critical vulnerabilities and gaps. We have reformed our risk management process. I've talked about it before. Fast Track ATO is continuing to be a great way for us to secure and address risk at every level. We've also provided a guide on our organization risk tolerance baseline. That allows us to give our folks the left and right bounds to ensure that we are doing the right things. The initial phases are underway and we're seeing progress. And then lastly, we're continuing to focus on DevSecOps. And what I want to do is operationalize that now and continuous ATO. So that's just a snippet of just some of the things that have been going on with the department. And like I mentioned before, we have a lot of different initiatives underway.
Sounds like it, and I hear a lot about DevSecOps, and a really important element of trying to deliver very quickly in regards to getting those ATOs delivered. And I know we all have this dream of ATO in a day, right? Venus, a lot of activity going on over at USDA. I know that you were working very hard on doing your SOC consolidation based on some good logic and good standards and taking the emotion out of it, et cetera. How's everything going over there? A lot of moving parts these days.
Absolutely. Good morning to you and of course my panel members. So first of all, my initiatives at the department are based on how I measured. And as you noticed, we just received the FATARA scorecard. And so that was a huge accomplishment really from cybersecurity, because a year ago when we started this, you know, we had a failing grade in cybersecurity, but I'm proud to say here we are 1 year later and we've increased our grade 2 letters. And so now, while I still have a C and I know that's average, we're definitely on our way to improving our cybersecurity score here at Department of Agriculture. And that's a whole of USDA effort, myself, my team, as well as the mission areas. And so, of course, and part of that is including our CAP goals as well, our cross-agency priority goals set by the President's management agenda. Again, we're improving. There are 10 CAP goals. We're mastering 9 of those 10. And so my team is hard at work making sure that we're meeting all of our regulatory, law, policy, regulatory requirements. But back to your mention about the SecOps consolidation, yes, we've now reorganized our individuals. And when you take 29 staff offices and agencies and combine all of the SOC functions into one under one roof, you must imagine that definitely is somewhat of a challenge, right? Because of the way the agencies are funded individually. But we've been able to do that. We've been able to unify our processes, and more importantly, through my tools rationalization, we've been able to really to minimize the multiple tools that provided the same capability across the enterprise. And one other thing that we're doing that I support as a CISO is our end user consolidation, where now we have one single service provider at the department providing those desktop services. And as I've always said, business drives cybersecurity. And so as being one of those foundational elements, it's been huge for us to make that transition, as well as closing, of course, our data centers. And that's, for me, is as a CISO, is important because now my attack surface, really diminishes. And so that's good for me, including flattening networks. So just like my other counterparts as well, continuing to manage risk. We have versions of an agile ATO, fast track ATO, where we're trying to meet, the business needs of the mission areas. So yes, very busy at Department of Agriculture. And so glad to be on today to talk about some of those things.
It sounds like you've got a lot of moving parts going on. Congratulations. I know that takes a lot to go 2 letter grades in a huge agency like that. So hats off to everyone over there. I'm sure that SOC consolidation activity probably helped that. Shane, a whole bunch of activity going on over at U.S. Immigration and Citizenship Services. I know there's a lot of activity in regards to hybrid cloud, multi-cloud implementation, SOC consolidation, assessments, et cetera. Give us a state of the state as to what's going on over there these days.
Way too much. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm happy to be here. And it is truly nice to be part of an actual cybersecurity panel as opposed to some cloud thing. So that's really great. USCIS is unique in a number of different ways, but primarily, we are a very cloud heavy organization. We started in cloud probably 10 years ago. At this point, we're 80, maybe even 85% cloud based. That alone itself has driven a number of initiatives. And so when I stepped into the role of CISO almost 2 years ago, coming up on 2 years, we also about that same time recognized some significant changes in our threat landscape, and realized we had to retool our entire program from the ground up. And so we did that. We reissued it. We created a brand new cyber initiative, an enhanced cybersecurity strategy, got that approved by senior leadership all the way up to the department, and really began focusing first and heavily on ending our compliance mindset, moving towards a very heavy risk-based model. We were well on our way already, but we really had some elements that were left over for kind of like an old school approach to security. We also began focusing heavy on data. As an agency, we're not the biggest federal agency on the planet, but at the same time, we still managed to generate 7 terabytes worth of log data a day. Clearly, the data is critical for us. We need to focus on that data and begin utilizing it to our advantage as opposed to just collecting it. And finally, we needed to recognize the chaos. Part of cybersecurity is a chaotic world, and we needed to become a more fluid, more nimble security organization. We adopted a more ops-based approach to how we do security. Even within the SOC, we use chat ops now as opposed in our incident response. We focused heavily on automation, and we deployed, a SOAR tool to begin pulling in all this information so that I could end the days of having people stare at screens looking for alerts. Actually, I don't have that anymore. Now, what I have is an entire SOC made up of threat hunters, because that's really where the future is. And so moving and modernizing all those aspects of the security program has really been my focus and has continued to be my focus, and then a number of initiatives along that front.
It sounds fantastic. I know that it's a fast-moving target with all the DevSecOps activity that's going on in the multi-cloud, yep. And being able to instrument that and put the tools in place to allow you to get into that more of a threat hunting sort of posture, I'm sure is very important. Chris, I would imagine that Infoblox is right smack in the middle of those types of things and helping these department and agencies instrument themselves to the point where they can enable this type of capability and secure it and then manage based on risks. Hearing a lot about risk today.
Oh yeah, most definitely. And good morning. I think the interesting aspect of it is Shane hit it, a lot of it pretty well, of what we want to hear from customers about what they're doing and the successes they're having. The agencies that we work with across the FedCiv, the DoD, and the IC, they're starting to realize the benefits of the value of visibility and containment in real time. As the number of alerts increases, that's one of the biggest challenges is with a decentralized workforce that we have now, it's even more imperative that you have an understanding of the actionable nature of all of the network intelligence that comes from those 7 terabytes of logs, for example, and what to make of that. And then combining that, marrying that up with the necessary threat intelligence to say, what do I prioritize? What do I look for? What's related? How do I contain this particular threat and classify it and rank it? And then relying on those ecosystem automations to rapidly detect, contain, mitigate, and remediate those threats. So that's where we're seeing a lot of benefit with the agencies we're working with.
Sure. And, it's really about putting capability in. So, you can find a needle in a stack of needles almost, right? Jim, how about over at Fortinet? You all are right smack in the middle of the ecosystem trying to enable this environment, make sure it stays secure. What are you seeing out there? What's the state of the state these days?
So good afternoon, Luke. Well, that's entirely correct. And, Fortinet is a company that has over 40 product lines, and we try to figure out how to harness those to the benefit of our government customers. And Chris alluded to the fact that AI-driven automation is key to this, that we in the industry have essentially been doing AI and machine learning long enough that it has gotten increasingly powerful to the point where we can now characterize network activity in real time to know what's normal and then what's abnormal. And neural networking can tell you what's abnormal and something you simply want to monitor and what is on balance probably malicious. So you can see this while it's coming in, hitting a target. Before it's succeeded, you can put a block in place there and you can block it globally. And not only have we started to develop that kind of power, but with that increasing power, it's become more, we've been actually able to make it simpler as well as it becomes more sophisticated. So now we're at the point where we can say, here's standalone versions that government customers can actually deploy in their network on premise, because you've got data where you don't even want the telemetry going off premise. So now we can actually help them with AI to say, here is security driven AI. You can deploy, it reports to your SOC, and it's only going to get smarter as it develops. So we're really excited about that potential that we're now starting to bring to some of our government partners.
Very super sophisticated high-end tools, which are extremely impressive. John, BMC's been around quite some time. You've been on this journey with us as we've gone from sort of traditional legacy environments into these modern environments. What are you seeing out there, and where is BMC sort of positioning themselves to continue on this journey and help us, secure these environments?
Yeah. So good afternoon, and thanks for having me. So when we look at where we're headed, where BMC is really focused, unlike maybe the traditional scanning, or think of it in terms of antivirus or those kind of things. A lot of the things that we're doing is really focused around blind spot detection, remediation, vulnerability management, and closed loop compliance, right? So as we look at, I'm gonna actually cheerlead for a couple of our panelists here in terms of Venus and Wanda here for a second. USDA, Venus was talking about some of the things that's going on there. I think some unbelievable strides here. Made USDA is a significant customer of ours, and very happy to have Venus here. And like I said, I'm going to cheerlead that organization here for a second. So, like I said, a lot of what we're doing, there, with USDA is so much around blind spot detection. Over 90% of physical infrastructure as well as platform as a service, recognized, resolving orphan IPs, shoring up some of those vulnerabilities. So things that are sitting that were unknown, sitting out on the network, and being able to take care of those, resolving orphan IPs and that kind of thing. So the other thing that is really kind of exciting here is looking at so many of the things, whether it's patches or otherwise. Usually those are known vulnerabilities, right? And at USDA, they've been able to really auto-populate a configuration management database, prioritize and deploy patches, based on full visibility and application mapping, that kind of thing. So what was once, I think, a very Herculean effort over 13,000 man hours, let's say a year ago, to patch servers is all the way down to 912, right? That's a over 90% efficiency gain. So just tremendous strides made by USDA, and I'll cheerlead here for a second with the Air Force as well. Some really unbelievable strides I think recently made over there around mapping out some dependencies and building out operational service models over 40,000 servers, right? So phase 2 of that is ingestion of vulnerability data into an automation console, prioritize patching infrastructure and endpoints, and then finally consistency of server image configuration and policy adherence, allowing for far more consistent visibility and really mitigation or elimination of those blind spots. So
sure.
Yeah.
Really appreciate being able to take that type of technology and help them sort of deal with this massive attack surface. Speaking of massive attack surfaces, Venus, let's go over to you and just tell us about the priorities. Got a lot of activity going on. What are the priorities sitting in front of you, say, over the rest of this year, sort of rolling into next year?
Yeah, so Luke, as I stated, business drives cybersecurity. So the things that the mission areas and the business owners need to do to deliver, USDA services drives my priorities. So in order for me to enable that, one of the things we're embarking upon is how do we use the RPA, the robotic process automation, really to simplify some of our processes and really allow people to do what we call, that high level work. And so from a cybersecurity perspective, how do I secure a non-person entity? Because, we rely on identity proofing with individuals, but how do you do that when it's a bot? So that's been great for us if we've moved into really maximizing the use of RPA, not just in our financial section of Department of Agriculture, but now within the mission areas. And so that's one. The other thing is, of course, I continue to manage risk. And so as we've moved to, version 2 of 837, the risk management framework, I've also implemented, I spent this entire year planning for RMF 2.0. And so October 1st will be the kickoff where we'll do a re-education of our entire roles and responsibilities from the authorizing official, down to the ISSO, just so they understand really what does it mean to accept risk. And then the next step in that would be to quantify that risk. Haven't decided on a model yet, but still exploring. I'm working with my Department of Energy. They're using the FAIR model, so we're taking a look at the work that they've done. So trying to figure out how can we really quantify risk so that when we talk about buying down risk, we actually know the cost of that risk. And so, of course, then lastly, of course, can't not miss talking about zero trust, right? So one of the things we did, not only, we're closing the data centers 39 to 2 and then flattening our networks, that really helps us and ushers us into the zero trust journey. How is the data accessed? Where is it accessed from? Accessed by whom? And if you had trust yesterday, does that mean you have trust tomorrow? So having all of that technology in place, and zero trust is technology agnostic. So I know that it will be, multiple vendors within my journey on zero trust. So those are kind of the 3 things that we're focused on, my priorities for the upcoming year at Department of Agriculture, as I continue to secure the data and the mission of the systems.
3 very important priorities and a daunting task, no doubt. Okay, we're going to take a short break and we'll be right back. You're listening to the Federal Executive Forum on Federal News Network.